fighting dependency on government so Arkansas can be the land of opportunity once again. Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. We're here at the Marble Palace. It's a special session. And joining us now, we have Senator Scott Flippo has just sat down at the table. Senator, welcome, sir.
Paul, good evening. Thank you.
Really glad that you could make it. I know you've been busy. You've been in public health.
Public health, that's correct.
What can you tell us what has just happened in the Senate Public Health Committee?
And then just happened in the Senate Public Health Committee is we heard a couple bills. One was which to clean up some technical errors with the medical marijuana bills. And the other one, which was one of the bigger bills, was, to apply for these federal waivers to tighten the eligibility guidelines for Arkansas Works, the private option, also known as Medicaid expansion, for free insurance for able-bodied working-age adults. And that's the long-term version of it.
Yeah, and I guess that did pass out, so now
it passed out. And Paul, I want to be clear that I did learn something in committee today.
You did, huh?
Amazingly enough, I did. Now, I was under the impression that when we got Arkansas Works that we had work requirements that came with that. And I noticed in this bill today that it says, that they were going to apply, tighten up some work requirements and actually mandate work requirements. And so, I asked one of my colleagues, I said, I thought we already had work requirements. I'm confused. I mean, if we already have them, why do we need them again? Well, as it turns out, the original work, quote-unquote, requirements were really suggestions. Now we're getting actual requirements. And so I thought I might have missed something or just misunderstood something, because as I looked back and I was thumbing through my emails, and I thought, I'm pretty sure that this time last year it said the word requirements. And it was actually suggestions.
Yeah, suggestions.
Okay.
All right. Well, at least you cleared that up in front of the entire committee.
Yeah, no.
Maybe some more folks were educated.
Well, I hope so, because certainly of all those folks, I need to be the ones getting educated, since I'm the one making the vote on it.
We're talking with Senator Scott Flippo. Okay, big thing that happened today, and I didn't get to do the interview, but our mutual friend, guest host at the time, Richard Castor, he interviewed you about the situation. You had a bill to address VFWs and Elks clubs who are raising money for charity in your district. And of course, the governor vetoed a bill that would have fixed some laws and regulations that were being applied to them. You tried to override his veto today.
Tried to override the veto.
Yeah, it did, and you fell a couple votes short, right?
3 votes short in the Senate. And surprised me, because I actually thought I was going to have the votes in the Senate. And but you never know, because politics is always a fluid situation. But to back up for your listeners, what had happened was, several months ago, I had some organizations come to me and say the ABC had been into their organizations, and these are Elks Club, VFW Posts, American Legions, Eagles Club, and that they have these little gaming amusement machines that don't pay out any cash. They print out tickets or give you credits, and that they use these machines to fund their charitable giving. And so these are private clubs, grown people. They've been doing this for the past 15 years, mind you. And the ABC has been in there numerous times, and it's never been an issue, never a problem. Well, all of a sudden, it is a problem, and it's illegal. And if these folks don't remove these machines, well, then the state is going to come in there, and they're going to pull their liquor license, which would essentially shut these organizations down.
Yeah.
So it's not just good. They're threatening if they don't stop their mechanism of how they raise money to fund their local charitable giving, then they're going to pull their license, which really kind of keeps them in operation overall. And that would be the ability to sell beer or, drinks. And the whole thing just doesn't make a lick of sense. And so, what I did, and naively, and in hindsight, I see where I'm not such a great politician. And, I ran this really ridiculous bill, which was titled, to prevent, the Alcohol Beverage Commission from enforcing state gaming laws.
Pretty straightforward.
Well, pretty straightforward, but also pretty ridiculous as well, because, that's not what this bill was. This bill was the bill to allow veterans and Elks and others the ability to raise money in their local communities and their private clubs, to raise money to fund their local charitable giving without getting hassled by the state. You know,
So
what a horrible bill to
Oh, yeah.
you know, to prevent this, you know, to prevent a state agency from enforcing gaming laws. No, it's to allow veterans to raise money in their local communities, and that's what these folks were doing. And you know, and that's kind of how things work down here in the Capitol. Is it's everybody pays attention to the title of the bill or the content. And, you know, it's easy on a mailer to say, I voted against that bill that would have removed, you know, the enforcement authority from a state law enforcement agency to enforce a state law. And on its face, most people would say, yeah, that's a good vote. Well, I disagree. I think that, you know, the ABC went in and they ran roughshod over good people who are benefiting not only their communities, but they're benefiting this state. And the state has been complicit the whole entire time in the fact that they've allowed these folks to operate for almost 20 years now, and they've never had an issue with it. And after a while, these folks begin to think that they're operating within the letter of the law. And again, mind you, these little machines they're playing, they don't pay out cash. They're printing out tickets, and they can go exchange those tickets and get a free meal at the club. They can get more credits on that machine. They can print out these little pull tabs, and they can use those to play bingo.
Yeah.
And if anybody out there is losing any sleep over bingo, charitable bingo,
bingo.
yeah, and isn't that a dog too?
Yeah, it's a dog.
Oh my God! I hope the state doesn't crack down on dogs named Bingo. I hope those are still safe.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, the government's always looking for new jurisdictions. So,
Oh yeah, and so you know, today, local control and due process lost out.
Yeah. And let's you know, you mentioned it. I want to back up. If you had put the word veterans in the title of the bill,
veterans, raising money,
but
orphans, you put those three things in there, it's a grand, you know, it's a grand slam.
Instead, you were just straightforward. Hey, this is to stop the government from doing X,
Exactly.
Y, and Z. The governor vetoes it, and I'm not really sure why. You can speculate if you want. I mean, he either does it because he doesn't want the ABC to not have this extra authority. You know, I mean, so he's protecting his power. Or maybe he just has something against the people of your good district. Yeah,
and I don't think that he has anything against the people of my district, and I don't think that he went in and he specified and directed the ABC to go in and do this. What I do believe is that this agency was kind of running amok, and this was not an isolated incident. Now, and I've spoken to a lot of people at the ABC, obviously, this over the past month, and they'll tell me, Senator, you know, there's bad actors out there. There are people that are blatantly taking advantage of these laws in the gray area, and they're just, you know, they're doing it blatantly and very illegally. And you know, we need to go after these guys. And I say, okay, I don't have a problem with that. But what I have a problem with is you went into North Central Arkansas and you went into 7 organizations of Elks and VFWs and American Legions. And, you know, these folks are not the bad actors. This was not an isolated incident. This was not you just went into one of these places and you just slipped up and you caught the mistake. You went into damn near every one of them in 3 counties.
Wow.
That ain't isolated.
Yeah. No, it's not. And, I mean, is there some sort of syndicated crime, you know, outfit that's going on up in North Central Arkansas that I'm not aware of?
I have no idea. As a matter of fact, before I came down here, I actually met with some of my veterans and Elks on Saturday back in Mountain Home, and I said, gentlemen, I need you to assure me, because I'm going to go down there and put my reputation on the line for you all to try to override a bill, and I'm happy to do so. But before I do that, please give me your word that you're not gathering around at 2 o'clock in the morning and going around and kicking in doors and breaking kneecaps because somebody's got an outstanding bingo debt. Can you give me that assurance? Because I don't want to be part of, you know, any kind of a racket here.
Yeah, it's probably harder to bury bodies in the hills too. A lot of rocky soil. You got to dig for a lot longer.
You know, if you're going to bury a body, you've got to work for it. You got to really want to do it. And you know, one other point is, so the state collects sales tax off the proceeds of these machines, and they also issue, you know, the permit tags, and you have to pay the permit fee.
That's true.
And I don't know, I just live in this crazy, you know world that I call reality. And in my reality, it doesn't add up that you can collect money off something in one hand and turn around and say it's illegal in the next.
Yeah, that is strange. So you have one bureaucracy taking the money, and giving you the licensing, the license that you need to operate the machine or to have the machine in your place, and then they come in and they say, "Hey, you can't do this." That's weird. That is a conflict of law.
It's crazy.
That's a conflict. So your bill was to correct a conflict of law.
I mean, it was just like that. Inherently, the ABC is under the umbrella of the Department of Finance and Administration.
Yeah.
So the Department of Finance and Administration is the one that's collecting all the revenues off of these machines. And the ABC, who is, there's the subsidiary, if you will, of the Department of Finance and Administration, they're going out and using their own interpretation and kind of picking and choosing based upon their opinion on this is legal or illegal. I asked people at the Bureau of Legislative Research, Department of Finance and Administration, and my colleagues, so that's 3 different groups of people down here at the Capitol, about some of these gaming laws and some of these definitions. And let's take charity poker tournaments. Is it legal? I got 3 different answers. So now here's an interesting point that I'll make, is that these laws are so gray and murky, and that a lot of times it boils down to just a matter of your interpretation. Mm-hmm. Now, who's the ABC to use their opinion and their interpretation? Did they go through some special process or some special training? If you have attorneys down here that, at the Capitol, and they can't even get on the same page about some of these laws,
wow,
that these agents are going to be the one that should be able to use their opinion and their discretion. And your due process doesn't consist of going through, a local prosecutor or courts. You go through the ABC board.
Yeah, and you're describing a very arbitrary nature, which I feel like is going to hurt the average person. I mean, when you depending on the ABC person that you have, the enforcement officer that you have, we now have less of a chance where we have the equal protection of the law.
You bet.
If you've got people doing the same thing, but there are different consequences for what they're doing. That's not good government.
And that's the purpose of the bill. Was the ABC only has the ability to enforce these gaming laws in establishments that have a liquor permit. In all other areas, in every dry county or establishment that doesn't sell liquor or beer, it is left up to local prosecutors and law enforcement. And I think they do a pretty good job. And so there's only about, I think, 9, 10, 11, 12 ABC agents, enforcement agents out there across the state. So this is not like you're removing, the capacity of the state police to pull over motorists, which would be affecting thousands of people or thousands of officers. It's a handful of people. And the problem I make is that they have no training. There's nothing really that inherently makes them any more or less qualified than you or I to go out and make that determination. They're not a prosecutor. They're not an attorney.
That's a really good point. We're talking with State Senator Scott Flippo, who did attempt to override the governor's veto of this issue we're talking about here. And, of course, it did fail by 3 votes. But I'm sure the people back home still want you to work on this issue as much as you can.
I'm kind of like I had some Elks and some veterans that came down today to support me in my effort to override. And I was joking with them afterwards that kind of like them, I'm pretty stubborn. And I ain't going to let this go. So,
Good for you.
Expect for this to continue to be an issue for me until it gets resolved or until I'm out of office.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one thing. I really appreciate you coming on, Scott. So the governor's plan, he wants $100 million to go from a trust fund into his long-term reserve fund. That plan failed by 6 votes at the joint budget about an hour and a half ago. Now they're going to reconvene again tomorrow at 8 a.m. and I guess try to get the votes. Do you get tired of them going through the committee process, it failing, and then they just bring it back up until they get the predetermined result that they want?
Hey, Paul, how do we get the private option to begin with?
I guess that same
We're
process.
going to sit here and vote until you say yes.
Yep. That's exactly right. I'm just tired of it. I guess at what point...
You're tired of it.
Well,
you're tired of it.
You're probably more tired of it than me.
Oh, gosh. And maybe your listeners.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good one. You nailed me, Scott. Yeah.
We all have our moments.
Touche. Well, that's interesting. What are the odds? Somebody did ask in that committee if we need this $100 million transfer to keep our current bond rating, because the governor says we need it to get a better bond rating. But what if, I'm just thinking, we want an internet sales tax, we want a gas tax, and then he says...
Hey, that's not a new tax, by the way. That internet sales tax, that's not a new tax.
But then we got to cut back $70 million, that we just heard. We got a budget shortfall, so we got to now amend. So I'm just wondering if for some reason if he doesn't get this, is it possible that we get downgraded in our bond status?
Paul, have you
that
not,
was asked. That's what
Paul,
I'm
have
saying.
you not heard that we have a 3.6% unemployment rating?
I have heard this, yes.
I don't know why you're asking these questions. It is roses and sunshine out there.
That's fantastic. We'll leave it there. Senator Scott Flippo, I appreciate you being on the program.
Thank you.
All right, folks, see, people understand when it's a talking point. We got to take a break. Back in just a moment.